everybody? Today's going to be a little bit of a different podcast. It's going to be a whole different topic. We're here with Troy Stokes. Troy, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. I know we've been talking a lot about doing this and getting fishing on the map with Great Lakes Outdoors. So,
well, we've talked about it for a while now, and we've, have not fished even nearly as much as we always say we're going to do with each other.
Right,
I mean, with the schedules being as busy as they are.
Yeah.
For people that don't know you, Troy, can you kind of just explain what you do and who you are and where, I guess, you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Troy Stokes. I actually grew up here in Michigan. I know Kyle from just fishing out on the Detroit River. I think you were out there
4 or 5 years
You were out
ago,
there every single day.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason why we met, because you were
right.
like, hey, you're the guy that's in that bass tracker every day. I'm like, yeah, that's a cool way to
we
meet
met on the
somebody,
beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Over there on Celeron. But so I actually grew up outside Lansing, kind of moved all over the place and came back down this way to Southeast for a job. But, now I'm trying to make it full-time professional fishing. So I went part-time. I work for Lineage Logistics, but as a part-time employee now. So that gives me enough time to go out fishing. I've fished in the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, did the pro circuit for the last couple of years. So this is my third year at the pro tour level. And, honestly, it's going in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to continuing it.
It's got to be a very stressful thing, though.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of younger guys, and I've been traveling with some younger guys, man, and it's like just the little decisions that can change your day from a good day to a bad day. And
well, we even talked about with even like the pre-scouting of the fish and why you had to go to part-time compared to full-time and trying to fit it all in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not young by any means in the fishing world, but I'm not old either. So I'm 33, and I mean, there's a ton of water that I have never fished before.
Right.
We're fishing against veterans that have been on the tour sometimes 20, 30 or more years. They've been to these places a tremendous amount of times. It's like if you ask me, hey, you want to go out to the Detroit River and fish a tournament in September, I'll say, yeah, I'll go out there. I don't even need to see the water, and I'm probably going to do pretty good. So you're fishing against guys like that where it's their home water, And
which, I mean, I feel like it's almost like if you're a veteran here, though, like you can be 20-something years old, which we got a buddy that, he's told both of us spots out there in the river. Like, he's my age, younger than you, and I would consider him like a veteran out on that water. You got those 20-year-old guys that are trying to make it.
Yeah.
That are a lake that you never touched. They're kind of a veteran to that area. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, those southern states, when you're fishing those local, not local, but like the lakes down south, you find like kind of a tendency of the fish-wise on the same thing? Or is it all different per state?
Like when I first started, I really thought a bass was a bass.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent it is true, but also the different types of fisheries that you go to, they do set up quite a bit differently, right? Like in Michigan we have natural inland lakes. They fish a lot different than like a highland impoundment or a reservoir. Like those fish set up differently. They actually, a lot of the magazines that you read, they are based off of those southern, kind of like the famous southern reservoirs. And so if you've read a lot and you've done your research, you can more go to the book, whereas you'll see the northern guys, they'll kind of struggle down south sometimes, and the southern guys will struggle up north because they do actually set up quite a bit differently. And especially if you talk about just largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass.
Right.
I mean, the varieties that you've got to go to. Murray Lake, when I went there to Lake Murray, it was my first year on the pro circuit. That was my first real experience with Herring Lake too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was completely different. I mean, it was insane, right? Like these guys are just throwing super fast moving baits, trying to get these fish to come up in schools. Some of them are, sitting over top of like 30, 40, 50 feet of water, and they're just like big largemouth,
Right.
It was just something
completely different.
I've never seen that before, in Michigan.
Now, kind of backtracking here, what kind of made your love for bass fishing? Like when you were younger, obviously everybody's parents take them out fishing, or grandpa or aunt, uncle, whoever it was. You start fishing, catfish, bass, bluegill, whatever it might be, panfish, whatever. What kind of clicked for you that, it's something that you want to chase your dream, or that was your dream of doing?
Yeah, so, I mean, my grandparents, they had some property up in Wademan, Michigan, and I would go out there and just fish off the dock all day, and I just enjoyed doing it. And then I started fishing tournaments with my dad. We actually did some panfish tournaments. I was like 9 years old or something.
Wow.
There was an old tour called Bass and Family, and I don't even think they're doing it anymore. It was really cool, though, because you could fish, and it was really more family-oriented, right? So I'd fish with my dad, and it was like panfish tournaments that we were doing, but they also did the bass side of things as well. And I just really liked the competition side of it, as well as it's just relaxing, and you getting outdoors. And, my dad always used to say, well, you're better off fishing than getting in trouble.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so I actually told him that the other day when I got married. I was like, hey, well, now I'm going to get in trouble again for going fishing, because now the wife's going to be like, hey, you're out on the water too much.
Right. And congratulations to that, too. I mean, it was a beautiful wedding. I was glad I was able to make it. So congrats to both of you guys.
Thanks for coming. But,
yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of how it started for me, though, it was just going out fishing a lot, getting that competitive part in it as well, where I started to see, how could you compete? And then we just did weeknight tournaments a lot. Like I grew up, I said, outside Lansing, so we fished all those area lakes, and we would fish Tuesday nighters, Thursday nighters, and just consistently getting out there and doing it. And
now, was that through high school and stuff like that you were fishing those?
Yeah, yeah. So I did that, and I got to meet a lot of good people that still fish today, a lot of them fishing around here. And, so you just get to meet a lot of good people. And, I did actually just, after college, because I went to Central Michigan, I started the fishing team up there.
So you started that fishing team?
Yeah, I did. And so I kind of was trying to bring it with me as I continued to grow up.
Which is huge, though, to start a whole, fishing division. Now, I mean, bass fishing, which is crazy to think about, not to cut you off by any means, but, the bass fishing at the college levels nowadays is just insane to get full rides for, fishing.
Yeah, it's huge. It's high school now. It's like every high school has a team. Yeah. Every college has a team.
I was so mad because as soon as I graduated high school, my high school, they got a bass team. It's like, why couldn't you had that 5 years ago when I was actually in school?
Yeah. I know, it's so cool, and it's just growing the sport even more, and it's getting people into it earlier and earlier.
Right.
And also they're getting better and better too. I can definitely see it. I think the Bassmaster Elite Series, half the tournaments this year got won by rookies.
Really?
Yeah. So definitely goes to show that people are getting out there and they're really learning how to use it, learning how to use the technology as well, because there's a lot going on there. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's blowing up, and it's cool to see that Central still has the team going. I've been able to talk to their president a couple times. I see them usually at the fishing shows and things like that, and it sounds like everything's going good. There's a couple local Michigan tours as well, so
that's super exciting.
It just provides so much more opportunity than when even we were growing up, really. It just wasn't there, but so it's cool to see it happen in such a short time span too.
I mean, something that you started off doing, and your passion is just going on from generation to generation. I mean, who knows how long it's going to go for?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. I know there's been a lot of people talk now like, hey, everybody grows up, they're just staring at their phone and everything. And I think, that's undoubtedly happening, right? But
for sure.
At the same time, you're seeing all these other sports blow up, and you're getting these outdoor sports now that are getting a little bit more coverage, and they're getting a lot more, membership in the college ranks, especially, and with the high schools.
So speaking of that wise, what are your thoughts on the technology and stuff like that with the fishing? Because personally, I don't understand it. I bass fish once in a while, in the springtime when I'm not turkey hunting, or right after walleye season when it slows down and stuff. So obviously, I remember a couple times when I went out with you, I'm like a lost dog, don't even know what you're talking about. You're speaking Chinese to me.
The one time I took you out to that spot, and we caught 150 fish or something.
Yeah, that was nuts.
I didn't even know that spot was that good when we went there, to be honest with you.
I took a buddy over there not too long ago because he's like, dude, I don't even know if I've ever caught a smallie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got a spot for you, dude. And there was a guy there. I don't even know if I told you about this. There was a guy there. He was sitting in, I took my duck boat over there, if that's anything.
Oh, yeah.
And he was sitting there, and I want to say he was over 80 fish in that same spot.
Jeez. Yeah.
I mean, some dinks, some, and some big ones, like we got. But absolutely killer of a spot that people just drive past every single day.
Oh, I know. It's
insane.
And one of the things with the technology portion is now they've got spot lock on all the trolling motors. So we're out there sitting there,
yeah,
and we're able to just sit on them and catch them.
Even for the walleye too.
Yeah,
because I know even with technology wise with your down imaging, I've talked to you a couple times with. You'll see a school of walleye behind a rock that aren't biting for jigging wise, and you're sitting there casting for them and you're hammering them. I mean, I think, what was it, like 2 years ago or something like that? You were out there and you were done within like 10 minutes of a limit just because you found that one rock or a log or whatever
they're
it was.
Just sitting right there.
Right.
Whole school of them.
Yeah.
They do that a lot actually in the spring, I've noticed. Like a lot of guys will just keep doing the really long drift and like you kind of find them in a little tiny area.
Right.
And you can actually almost just drift over them and trolling motor back up and drift over them and you can get it right on top of them.
I would like to get more involved with that, but like I said, I mean, like technology, a lot of people talk down about it, but there's a lot of technology that's also very good.
Yeah. So, I mean, the hot topic right now, and I know it blows up my feed, is the forward-facing sonar. So there's been so many changes throughout fishing, right? Like originally, I remember when I was first fishing with my dad, we had the flasher unit, the Humminbird flasher.
Right.
And it's like, I think we just found some weeds because, you can see it up on there. It's like when you're ice fishing. It's the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Except for that was like the top end on the bass fishing boats too.
Yeah. You're like, you have that? You guys are killer.
Yeah. Then we're using handheld GPSs, handheld to be able to actually get to the spots that we were going to, because you used to have to triangulate like out in the middle of Lake Erie. It would have been impossible to find where you were going if you found a honey hole, and then you got to come back, right?
Okay, so technology wise though, is that what we were just on? We just took a little beverage break. That was a Mountain Dew.
So I was kind of going through the timeline of the technology and like where I started with the flasher, and then you can start getting the handheld GPS, and you're out there now and you can just find your spots, and it's super easy. I actually, I'm 33, but I did learn the triangulation method where you're looking on the bank and you're looking at a house, and then you're looking across the lake, you're looking for another one, and then you got to get a third point, right? Because if you can line up all three, then you can try to get back to the same spot that you just found them, right?
Right.
And that's how everybody used to do it. Then you get the handheld GPS, and you start getting color chart plotters, and you can see the bottom hardness, the different colors. It's red, it's, hard bottom and things like that. And, but now everybody's hot topic is the forward-facing sonar, where you can literally see 100, 120, 150 feet directly in front of the boat and pan around with your trolling motor and see the fish. So that's the big hot topic. A lot of guys don't like it. They think that, it's making it take less skill to actually be competitive because you're really just video game fishing. And I mean, there's probably some truth to that. I mean, I'm not the biggest forward-facing sonar guy, but also I think if you look at my performance this year, everyone's been using it all year, and I've been able to do just fine. And in some ways, it's actually helping me because I'm banking on everybody just, oh man, you got to go out there, you got to use the forward-facing sonar, and I'm fishing old school ways, and I'm catching all the fish that they're kind of leaving behind now, right? So I almost like it just as a distraction to keep them away from me.
Do you feel that way though sometimes? Because I feel this way with fishing. Like, back in the day, they used to have like hand carved lures, and they would have all like handmade stuff from local guys or whatever it may be. Do you think sometimes like lures and stuff are getting almost too technical, or like people are getting too technical or thinking too much about stuff? Because I even go this way with like my waterfowl hunting. Like, people used to hunt over like legit milk jugs painted black back in the day, but now everybody's going like super in depth with everything. Do you think like the old tricks can still work? I mean, just as good sometimes.
I think 100%. I mean,
that's what I always think too.
Honestly, I do better when I just fish the way that I'm comfortable fishing, and I don't really think about it as much.
Right.
I've had some of my best tournaments just putting the trolling motor down and just fishing all day. I mean, I've done it now a couple different times. I mean, Pickwick last year, I was in position to win that tournament, and I mean, I didn't have like the mega school or anything found in practice. I just Went out there. The first day of the tournament, I literally put the trolling motor down, picked it up 4 hours later, had a good limit. Looked at the marshal in the boat. I was like, hey, let's go make a run and see if we can't catch a couple big ones. Got like one big one down there, ran back. Same thing the next day. I just completely different pattern. Just kind of, it was a different day.
Just having a good time.
Just put the trolling motor down and just went fishing and caught another good bag. Ran down south. See, hey, can we catch a big one? Caught like 6-pounder. And then, third day, it was more just down south where I got them. But yeah, just kind of fishing the moment and just not letting it mess with you. Because now, especially, because I do have really good electronics, I can see where every single spot where I've ever caught a fish. And it's really easy just to get stuck in that loophole of like, well,
thinking
I caught one off this tree, I
right.
caught one right here off this deal, and like just continually running all that stuff where it's sometimes just better.
That's gotta be a hard thing too, though, because you guys are fishing lakes. Doesn't mean that the locals aren't there like a day before or a week before, or whatever it may be. The local sees you catch a fish there, tells his grandson that night to go out there and catch it. You know what I mean? Like, your guys' sport is like always moving, whether it be like, same with waterfowl, but like temperature's got a lot to do with it. Right. Wind's got a lot to do with it. There's so many different like small detailed stuff that, a lot of people overlook,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's the important part, right? Like if you talk about what's the more important, like the shiny lure, the new lure, yeah, you might get a couple extra bites, but the people that really understand the patterns and the weather and how it's changing and how it's going to affect what the fish are doing, you could probably throw. I always say it's easy. It's a lot harder to find the fish than it is to catch them. Like if I know they're there, I can pretty much catch them almost in all scenarios. But actually finding them is the challenging part.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what my dad always said too. He said that. I think it was my dad or grandpa always said that. Most lures catch more people than they do fish.
Yeah, they catch the fisherman.
Yeah,
man. Just log into tacklewarehouse.com and see how many different colors of the same bait's on there, man. It's like,
it's
I've got like 20 of one bait, but of one different colors, right? But
go back to your wacky rigs or your Senko worms, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. I'll end up throwing in the tournament. I'll throw like the same color the whole time because this is what most people do. They'll catch one on a good color
and they get stuck,
and then they decide, oh well, I don't want to try the other 10 that I bought because I just caught one on this one, so I'm never throwing a different color.
That's gotta be tough though. That's gotta be tough. And then you're scratching your head, why didn't I catch more fish?
Yeah.
When you're keeping the same color going on.
Yeah, right. I a couple of years ago just decided to keep a little bit more basic. It's like if you clear water, use something more natural. If it's dark water, the dirtier it gets, use something a little bit more visible. I like black and blues, obviously, for like dirty water. And then I like, just natural colors like a watermelon seed, things like that in the clear water like in Michigan. And, just replicate whatever the forage is. But basically, if you do that, you might only need 2 colors of each bait, and you're probably going to be pretty well covered because dirty water or clear water, stained water in the middle.
Right.
But.
There's so many different things that. Because you got your average guy out there that are just fishing, in the summertime or whatever it may be, that thinks he's somebody out there. Excuse me. Nowadays, YouTube has just opened up a whole new realm for fishermen. We can get into that too. But I think I want to talk about too is like I want to know your process of getting to where you're at now. Like what? So I know you started the Central Michigan fishing team. What was the journey, I guess, of where you're at?
Yeah. Oh, it was an interesting journey, I'll put it that way. Like I didn't graduate, so I fished during college on the college tour, and I fished all the MLF college fishing tournaments. I didn't do quite as many of just the local ones, just because I'm in college and I don't have a boat. Back then when MLF first started, it was really cool. You would actually just follow what they have as a Toyota Series tournament. They would pay Toyota Series guys that didn't make the final day cut, and they would take us, the college guys, and they would basically let us use their boat, and they would just drive it, and we would tell them where to go.
Oh, really?
It was the coolest thing ever.
Right, because you're in some like $90,000 boat for the first time.
Yeah, exactly, man. It was the deal. The National Guard was title sponsor back then. The payouts were actually really good in the college tour, and they even give us a little bit of money for gas.
Really?
So it was really cool. I mean, they really, really tried hard to get people into the sport and to
Right.
get universities to
Which
buy
is
it.
awesome.
And once, now it's got such a foothold that, and it's amazing to me, honestly. Like, it's a lot of schools, they have their own boats. They have them wrapped. Like, if you look at Adrian College, probably the best example in Michigan. Adrian.
That's one of the biggest schools for fishing, no?
Yeah, they've won School of the Year many times. I know quite a few of the guys that fished on Adrian's team. They fished the pro circuit. Chase Seraphin, he did it with me. And, man, those guys are really good. And they've got so much experience, too. And,
right.
and like, they also, I mean, my understanding is you can get full ride scholarship at Adrian.
That's what I heard. I think
for college fishing.
I'm pretty sure.
So it's really cool. And now MLF doesn't give you a boat to fish with anymore, but there's so many schools that have seen the value in doing it now that a lot of them have boats for you.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
A lot of opportunities out there for somebody like the fishermen, I guess, in the world.
Yeah, exactly. But man, I graduated Central Michigan, and I actually moved to Huntington Beach, California, where
really
with no boat.
Holy smokes! I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and I didn't have a boat probably for a year, and I ended up getting like a 14-foot aluminum boat, and I went out fishing the lakes around there. Which
California's got some huge bass.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
That's what I heard.
I have
just nuts.
The biggest bass I ever had on. I unfortunately I lost it, but it was in California.
Probably what, an 18, 19 pounder then? I mean, it's your story. You can tell how you want.
Right, yeah.
That's what makes a good fisherman.
yeah. No,
tell good stories.
The lakes. It was at Paris Lake, California. There are gigantic fish in there. Like, I mean, there's been plenty of 15+ pounders caught out of there. This one was probably like a 12-pounder. But
still couldn't imagine.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty fun though, actually. And I would just get back in. There's a lot of like the bushes in that lake, and I had this, junky 14-foot aluminum boat that I didn't care. I'd scratch it all up. So I'm digging through these bushes, and all the guys in the bass boats are like throwing Huddleston Deluxes, like trout baits out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they throw a big trout because they stock those lakes out there with them.
Oh, okay.
But so I was going out on the inside because it was kind of in the springtime, and I got all the way in the inside line. Man, I caught a ton of fish in there that nobody else would even try to catch. Because I mean, seriously, if you put your fiberglass boat through that, it would be tore up.
Right.
So I mean, that's where I lost that one though. It was giant, but
So how long were you out in California then?
I was out there. I worked for Boeing out there, and I worked for them for about a couple of years in California. Yeah, and then, I mean, I moved a couple different times and went out to Charleston, South Carolina for like a short period of time and helped build that 777X that they had out there.
Okay.
They were standing that up that year, and so they were trying to open up some buildings, and I was kind of helping do that. And I ended up in St. Louis, and that's when I bought my first bass boat, my actual first bass boat, because my dad always had a bass boat. So
Was that the Phoenix?
No, that was my Ranger that I had when you met me. I had that Ranger.
Yes.
That was the same boat.
That was the boat. No, it wasn't the boat that we speared all those waves out in the river.
Oh no, that was.
That was that?
Oh yeah. I think it was.
It might have been.
The Phoenix doesn't spear waves. The Ranger was a little nose heavy.
Okay, that's. Oh yeah, you're probably right, because I think that was the boat that we caught all those smallies in that spot too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That was the worst. I still tell that story about spearing like 10 waves.
Yeah, and that was the day when wasn't my engine acting up.
We just got it back from the shop.
Yeah.
And you wanted to run it, but then you're like, no, it's south winds. I was like, no, dude, it's fine. We'll go upriver.
Yeah,
it's not going to be as bad.
Yeah, we started running up
terrible.
towards Miracle Mile. That was a horrible idea. Yeah.
It was so bad. I mean, I had Carhartt bibs on that weighed 50 pounds.
Yeah.
I had a jacket on that weighed another 50 pounds on top of that, and the whole bottom of the boat was just full of water.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was rough, man.
That was rough.
But those are those memories.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually told that story at your wedding, actually, to the guys that was up at the table.
Oh, yeah, that was... Man, and that was so cool having the wedding, too, on the Detroit River, because...
I was totally expecting you to just pull up in the boat, and I was like...
I really wanted
hell,
to. I mean, I was thinking about it. I could have had it sitting out there. I saw a couple guys bass fishing. There was a tournament the next day, so there was like a bunch of guys running up and down earlier earlier during the day, and I was like, man, it could have brought the boat.
Itch. Yeah,
exactly. But
no, it was cool though. It was cool.
Yeah,
but no, so you go to St. Louis though. I think not long after that is when I met you, I think.
Yeah, so I was in St. Louis for a couple years, so I think I moved out of Michigan for like 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
It's probably about 5 years. And then that's when I moved back and I got the house down there by the Erie Metro Park.
Right.
And I was fishing every single day.
Right in your backyard?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Walleye too.
Yeah, in my backyard too, because it always floods around there.
Right.
So, yeah, that was unfortunate. It was a great spot, but with all the wind blowing, flooding, I mean, that's one thing that I never knew.
It's a good fishing spot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Living quarters, it's tough.
Lake Erie, man.
She's
you think the ocean has the tide, but Lake Erie, if you add in the wind, you live on the western side of Lake Erie and it blows to the east. Ask anybody that lives there.
Yeah.
I mean, that water can come up like 6 feet in a couple of hours. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And then be bone dry in a few hours, vice versa winds.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and they say it's the most dangerous lake out there because of the fact how shallow it is, I believe it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Or the most dangerous out of the Great Lakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the waves, I mean, the thing is because it is shallow, the waves don't want to roll as big.
Right.
Like you get out there in those deeper lakes, they just roll way bigger.
Right.
And actually the bigger rollers are easier to navigate, to be honest with you. I mean, and especially if you go out around Sandusky Bay and you get all the cruisers plus the rollers. Yeah, that's worse. That's worse than St. Clair, honestly. I mean, a lot of people talk about St. Clair by Harley Ensign.
Well, St. Clair's bad because it's like a toilet bowl, basically. It's just a big giant bowl that just bounces off of each other. It's like that day we took the Ranger out. I feel like it's bouncing off each side, and
you can't try to do anything. You can't try to really maneuver the waves because they're coming from all directions, and there's no pattern to them.
Yeah, exactly.
But Sandusky, in my opinion, takes the cake for the roughest area that I've been in Lake Erie.
Really?
Sandusky Bay, if you come out of the bay and you start running up by like Marblehead Island and things like that, there's so many cruisers going through there. And I mean, it's just...
I got a buddy that's going to be on the podcast soon. He's he was supposed to come up last week, I believe it was. He's ODNR out of Sandusky.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
So I'll have to ask him about
He'll
that.
know. He'll be like, oh, yeah, we get calls all the time, probably, you know, to go get guys towed back. And
I'll have to ask him about that.
The Coast Guard. I see the Coast Guard choppers out there a few times when I've been out there. I'm like, man.
He's a big fisherman, too, so, I mean, maybe I'll have you in as long as the schedules line up and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to let you know. But you get back. You're in St. Louis. You get back here. Are you doing any circuits or anything out of state, or when did joining everything come about?
Yeah, I fished once I bought the boat in St. Louis. I was fishing the Bass Federation out of Illinois, and really in St. Louis, I had to drive quite a far away to get anywhere where I wanted to compete, and so I did that, and that was just kind of cutting my teeth, learning a lot of those southern reservoir type bodies of water, right? So that was super beneficial. Actually, moving out to California, moving over into different areas,
ways to fish, and
I got a lot of experience down south that I never would have got.
Right.
And so when I moved back up here, honestly, I didn't fish the east side that much growing up, and then living there right on the water, I mean, it was like I go out there every day, like you knew.
Right.
And so I was able to learn that really, really well in a couple of years. And in 2020. Because I was traveling a ton for work, I didn't have time to really try to compete.
That was after I met you, though, no?
It was, yeah.
Okay, because I feel like I met you right out of college, I want to say. Somewhere right around there.
Well, it was once I moved back from St. Louis.
What year was that?
It's probably 18, 19.
Yeah, right around there then.
It was probably 18.
Yeah, right around
But it was 18. Might have been 17. It was probably 18.
Yeah.
Early 18.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's like I was fishing some of the lower level stuff, some of the local stuff, just trying to cut my teeth again, and was doing all right. But man, honestly, the main thing is like trying to fish or qualify for the pro tours. You need to have a lot of time.
Right.
And I had a good job, and I was traveling a lot.
It's hard to give that up when money's flowing in that easily.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, I don't have the time to really do it. But then I made the All-American through the BFL, which is like basically the I guess the Super Bowl of grassroots fishing.
Okay.
So I did that, and at the time I'm working for Lineage, and I'm like, hey, the next year for the Toyota series, I'm like, you guys help me out a little bit and, help me with being able to have the time to do this. And they were like, yeah, go for it. And so that was the first year that I fished the Toyota series, which was the tour that you can qualify for the pro circuit, or what's now known as the Invitationals, what I'm fishing right now. So, ended up working out really well. Had a lot of time because everybody was stuck at home, so I was able to go fishing, and try to really kind of learn the water. And
is that what kind of opened your eyes up with like the pre-scouting and stuff like that? Like, and really trying to make it?
Yeah, I mean, I already kind of knew that, but the thing of it is that I had never really tried. Like, I never really gave myself the opportunity to try to make the pro ranks until that year. And to be honest with you, I don't think that I was fishing the Toyota series thinking like, hey, I'm going to top 6 this year.
Right.
Because the guys you're competing against, I mean, they're the sticks. I mean, they're the best of the best. And so it's not easy to do it, but I don't know, I almost won the first tournament of the year. Second one, I took like 13th, and then the last tournament of the year, I took second. So, I mean, I had a chance to win 2 of them. The first one actually was out of Sandusky Bay, and it got so rough they wouldn't let us leave the bay.
Really?
I had like a 3.5-pound lead going into the final day, and I had a spot that I was running to, man, that it was guaranteed I was going to win that tournament. If I could have got there, it was game over for sure.
Like, too rough.
It was too rough. They wouldn't let you out of the bay, so they locked everyone in. And
oh, man.
I had never really fished the bay, and it's largemouth in there, and all I had was smallmouth gear. And I'm like, man, I don't even have anything to hardly fish for largemouth with.
Right.
And so that was my mistake. Definitely
being versatile has got to be huge in that in the industry.
Learned a huge lesson.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, you got to have plan B going on,
right?
No matter what. Because the weather the whole week that time was supposed to be calmer every day of the tournament. And so I remember one of my buddies asking me after I was sitting in first place after day 2, he's like, hey, you're going to be able to get to your spot tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like,
you're sitting up there on the perch and stuff. You don't know what's going on.
Absolutely no concern with getting there. It's going to be like dead calm. I'm going to get there in like 40 minutes tomorrow, right? Like, and then if you looked at the weather, like, no, not yet. And that's the thing. Like, Erie changes really quick, right?
It definitely does.
So,
I mean, we'll be out on the beach, and then next thing you know, like an hour into it, where it's supposed to be dead calm, there's 3-4 footers right in the river right there, and it's like, when did this happen? I mean, the wind switches so fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like day to day. You never know what's going to happen. So
never do.
That's what got me. So learned that lesson pretty quick. But it was a good way to get into the pro circuit. And so since I got into the pro circuit, there's really been no tournaments within probably closer than like 7 hours from Michigan.
Really?
Yeah, and so that's been tough, but they just released the schedule for next year.
How's that look?
And they got one out of Trenton, Michigan.
Oh.
On the Detroit River. So
what time of year is it, though?
It's in July, so it's not really the time of year that you really want to fish the river, but I mean, I'll take the home field advantage any time of year, to be honest with you.
I feel like we got a couple spots that we both know of that, could give you a little upper.
Oh, they'll be there. Yeah. They'll be there, but the thing about it is St. Clair has historically been so good that you've got to be catching 22 to 24 pounds a day.
Is St. Clair, though, like, I mean, are they really stacked up as thick as they always say they are? Like, because I feel like St. Clair, a lot of the time, like, the guys are just catching them really good springtime and not so much summertime. Like, you don't really hear a lot of guys fishing at summertime.
Yeah, this year was the exception where it just hadn't really fished as good. I mean, the big fish are still there. The Elite Series guys were there. They were all catching like 22 pounds a day. Or the top 10 was. A lot of guys didn't do that good. A lot of like 17, 18-pound bags, which, you can do better than that in Erie or on the river and things like that. But I think my strategy, I've got a couple spots in St. Clair, but it's really going to come down to how is it fishing, because they give us 3 days, or I'm not sure, they might change it back to 2.
Weather too. I mean, that's obviously got a big part of if you're, if it's out of Trenton,
and
the weather is not looking so good, just like you just said, you got to have that plan B, C, and D.
Yeah,
almost.
and it's huge with having Erie open, St. Clair open. I mean, if you get a really strong north wind, you can fish the North Shore of Erie, and it's not really going to impact you that much.
Right.
But if you're trying to fish anywhere down in Canada on the South Shore of St. Clair, you're done for.
Right.
So, and it's also how much do you want to spend running. But, I mean, even when guys were launching out to Sandusky 2 years ago for one of the super tournaments, there was guys running from Sandusky all the way to St. Clair. It was insane. Like that.
Wasn't that the tournament that I'm going to say where, but like you did some running too or no?
I did running, but I fished a tournament like the week after. This was a different.
Okay.
This was the year when I was trying to qualify for the pro circuit. So the pro circuit did like a super tournament with the BPT guys.
I gotcha.
And they did it out of Sandusky. And there was guys breaking off the windshields off their like not just the windshield,
smokes.
like the whole console would break off in their lap because they were just jumping these waves.
Well, they don't realize how rough it can get. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were just talking about how rough it was before I almost just pissed my pants. On Lake Erie, how rough it was.
Yeah, and people running from Sandusky all the way to St. Clair just because that's where they've been winning the tournaments. But yeah, we've got that invitational, though, out of Detroit River in July, and all the BFLs, all the local tournaments this year have been out of Elizabeth Park because they're doing some work up there on the ramp up there at St. Clair. And just looking at it, I haven't fished any of them, but just looking at who's been doing good, I want to say that Erie has been doing some damage.
Really?
Yeah. Like, they've been doing good on Erie.
Now, when you're fishing, are you like, I'll just use Erie because I know Erie. But if you go out here, what are you targeting? Largemouth or smallies?
Definitely smallmouth if you're going out into the lake. There's a lot of largemouth, though. I mean, I've actually weighed in plenty of mixed bags, and nobody really realizes that, I don't think. But I've weighed in 20-pound bags plenty of times where I'll have one or two largemouth in there because there's a ton of big largemouth in the Erie Basin there. I mean, you know that in the spring it's really good.
Oh, in the springtime it's crazy.
I mean, we'll just go out there and you can just catch them one after the other.
100%.
It is kind of hard to find the 4 and 5 pounders, especially later in the year. But, it's still worth trying, especially because sometimes the smallmouth, they're just kind of off or it's really windy and you just need to get a couple extra bites and you can do that.
I feel like Erie and even the river here, it's very, it's not talked about a lot, but I feel like you've seen that one smallmouth I caught in the river that was just like huge.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know how good it actually is here if you know where to fish and when to fish it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's plenty of guys that are doing good in the tournaments that they kind of know this area and they know what to do, but I can't tell you how many times people from out of state or just people that I happen to run across, they're like, oh, where do you normally fish? And I'm like, the Detroit River. And they're like, oh,
yeah,
that doesn't sound very good.
I mean, besides like walleye, because, Detroit River is, very well known for the walleye.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of big bass here.
Yeah.
A lot. And I'm not talking about California-sized bass or Florida-sized bass or, any of those southern states or western states that, are getting 10-plus pounds. Cause we don't have that here.
Right.
But, for the most part, that we do have a lot of jeez, oh, Pete's. Excuse me.
He's getting choked up there so big.
Yeah, no kidding. We do have a lot of big fish around here, though.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that the smallmouth around here, it's known as world class. If you think about people.
Yeah, for sure.
There's people that take trips up here every year and guiding, and that's something, honestly, that I probably should look into doing because.
I was going to ask you about that, too.
It's like, I know where they're at. I can go out there and I can catch them, and it also kind of keeps you on your toes because you can go out there more often, and there's a lot of people.
Practicing for you yourself, wise.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of people that I know that do the guiding, and there are people that could do really well in tournaments as well. But, like, I've talked to some of them, and they're like, well, here's the deal. Like, I'm going to get paid no matter what when I'm guiding. When you're fishing a tournament, that's not always necessarily going to happen. Correct. So I know now that fishing is going to be a profitable endeavor for me if I'm a guide versus
even
tournaments.
Think about this, though, too. I mean, you get, your name out there more and more. You got all walleye season for guiding as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just smallmouth and stuff.
Yeah,
Because, there's a lot of guides up in St. Clair that are going for, like, the sturgeon and muskie and all that stuff. And it's a hard thing to come by, which a lot of guys do really good at and are successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's not a lot of smallmouth guys or largemouth guys that are guiding out in our areas that maybe there is. I don't know. I just haven't heard of them.
There's a few really good ones, and then there's probably quite a few that are trying to do it. But there's, based on what I see, almost everybody's going to Marcel's guide service. And I know some of the guys that run with Marcel, and I actually grew up fishing against some of them. And, I mean, they're just great people.
Right.
And so that's why they go there.
Right. That's a huge thing, too.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, it's like they're always on them, though. And that's the thing when you've got a team of guys, too, where they have – it's just more than one person. And I went on a guide for walleye and muskie on St. Clair one time. Somebody I worked with was like, hey, do you want to go on this trip? I got an extra seat.
Right.
I've never been on a guided trip, to be honest with you. And
not for fishing, no.
No, yeah. And so I went on it, and they talk a lot, right? So the guides kind of work together, and those lakes are so big that they'll stay on them all the time because somebody's found them over in this corner or that corner, and so that really helps out.
A lot of Facebook warriors or Instagram warriors that are like checking the backgrounds of pictures and all that other stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, so I got trained by somebody this year that I travel with, Cole Hewitt from Florida, and he's like, hey, you got to stop taking these pictures where you can see the background. He's like, I'm looking at your glasses, and I know where you're fishing. And I'm like, dude, you're looking at my glasses, man.
That's the thing. Like, even for waterfowl hunting, like, that's a big thing, man. Like, those screen warriors are – it's that's why I literally go – like, last year there was a couple times where we took pictures out in the fields and stuff, but there was most of the time we were going to the same spot at the farm and taking pictures there. So, you might know the area, but you don't know, like – there was one time we traveled probably 10 miles just to get to the farm to take a picture there. Unless there's like a cool like background at like where we're hunting at or whatever it is. Like, yeah, that's one thing. But we traveled 10 miles just to take a picture at the farm.
Yeah.
So no one knew even like we were there. You know what I mean? Like it's
I know
it's
what you
a
mean.
Crazy thing.
It's
crazy.
It's real. And I've heard, so if you watch the live stream on Bassmaster, MLF doesn't seem to do it anymore because I think they figured it out. But like they were even showing where guys would fish on the live stream.
That's tough.
I mean, it's fine, but then you start to get guys that are just coming out there and they're like, "Oh, this guy's hammering them." So like it's a 3 or 4 day tournament, and then they'll like go out there after you're done, but you're still got to go there the next day. And so they stopped doing that, I think, on the MLF side. But now they've got these scales, which is pretty cool, actually. It's called a Bubba scale, and when I weigh my fish, it actually automatically sends the weight in to the live stream so that you've got the live leaderboard, and it automatically synced up. It also has my location, which it doesn't get shared with anybody, but it allows like MLF to know where you're at. So if you start catching them really good, they can send a camera boat your way.
That's cool, then.
And so that is pretty cool, but I appreciate that they don't use that data and just put it out on the live stream and be like, hey, here's where Stokes is. He's fishing like this point, and he just caught
40 boats around
3 6-pounders, right?
Right. Yeah, that's got to be tough, man. That's got to be tough. That's what that is a downside of social media and technology wise. Here we go again. No, we're good. That we talked about though. I mean, it's got to be it's a downside for like the waterfowl side, and I guess I could say a little bit on the deer side too. I mean, you got a lot of these guys that are. Which this part's different, killing to kill birds for the pile pictures and stuff like that. And, they'll try to backdoor you for your fields or your water spots and whatever else. It's got to be the same kind of thing for you guys, I mean, you guys are making a living off of this stuff. I mean, you guys.
Yeah, we're trying to make a living.
Right.
That's the key. It's not easy because you've got to have the right sponsors, and then you've got to do good in the tournaments. There is a lot of competition, and I mean it's tough, right? So I mean, that's where I feel like I've got something going right now that's pretty good, and I think I can keep it going. But I got to keep pushing, and especially with social media. I mean, that is a good point, right? Like I'm on your podcast right now, and I like doing it, and I like what Great Lakes Outdoors stands for. Right. But I've never been like the number one social media guy. I don't even really attempt to be. I don't even try to claim to be because it's very obvious.
Which isn't a bad thing though. At the same time, you know what I mean?
And anyone listening to this, go check out my Instagram at Troy Stokes Fishing and follow me because I don't have a lot of followers, right? And that's probably been one of the bigger learning points for me because when you go to the sponsors, it used to be like, hey, is he a good guy and is he good at fishing and has he been doing it for a long time? And if you look at that, I think that I can check those boxes. But then when they're like, oh, well, I need you to have 30,000 followers on Instagram, I'm like, okay.
Let me just buy them and
I don't have 30,000 followers on Instagram, but
right.
I use your products and I understand intricately how they work.
Is that a big thing,
I truly
though?
believe in them.
Is that a big thing on like your guys' circuit and everything with like followers and with sponsors? Like the more followers that you have, the better sponsors you're gonna get.
I would say that as a rule of thumb, that's generally correct. But there are some companies that I have on my team specifically that they are a little bit more appreciative of just what you can bring as a person.
Right.
And they understand who you are. And those are the companies that I really like to partner with anyway, because then I have more of a personal relationship. Mm-hmm. There's been a couple that I've had previously that a lot of times it happens through like acquisition. Mm-hmm. Like a smaller company gets bought by a bigger company, and then all of a sudden they're like looking at your Instagram followers and you have to have a number.
Why were you even? Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, you got to have the number, and it's like, okay, well now here's the craziest thing. Like I actually have an example of this happening this year where like I'd been using their products forever, really liked it, and the follower number was all they cared about, and then they went and actually bought these other people that had the followers that had never used their products ever before and just bought them. And I'm like, that is interesting. I mean, I get it because that's the way they're looking at it, but I would rather have people represent my product personally that know how it works and have used it for years, because that way it just seems more genuine to me.
So what's your standpoint on all of that though? I mean, like I know since we talked and everything, you were going to try to do more on social media and that standpoint of everything. What's your thought process on?
Yeah, I think part of the reason, so besides just being able to go to these fisheries ahead of these tournaments and try to learn a little bit more about them, being able to dedicate a little bit more time to social media, videos, things like that, like we were talking about today, right? I mean, so I just got married. It's tough to have a lot of extra time in those environments, and it was tough when I was traveling 50 to 75% of the time for my job. So now that I've been able to go part-time, I really do want to focus on it. It's part of the thing that we want to work on together as well, is having a lot more fishing content, a lot more good videos and things like that. And I have so much of it that it's there already. I already have the content. It's just like it needs to be created into something else. And it just takes a lot of time. Like, honestly, it's not easy to get that social media following because you have to be on there every day.
It's not at all.
It's
because
a challenge.
For us wise, we were really slacking this past weekend, which we're recording this the week after Labor Day. I was out of town. Trav was out of town. So we were, we're with our family. We're not really thinking about posting anything, which, that we could schedule a post or whatever it is, which we do we do and we have in the past. But, there's some days where it's just like, I don't have the time, or I'm not even thinking of this. I want to just spend time with the family. I want to hang out. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, you're not thinking of it, but like we post, I think 4 days a week. I think it is. And people don't realize, like, it's legit, like almost like a second job.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Absolutely 100%. Crazy.
If you're editing the videos and you're putting it all together and you're making the captions and all those things, it's a full-time job. It really is, and it's hard to do too. Like if you don't have the right perspective on it, right? Because I've even talked to Chelsea, my wife Chelsea, and I'm like, hey, you can probably edit these videos and create some different things with them, but it's also kind of hard for her to do it because she doesn't really necessarily think the same way that I do.
Right.
And if it's going out on my channel, like I want it to be, whatever
it's tough
that I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost hard for me to even like ask somebody else to even do it.
That's what's tough. Like we got my buddy Meatball, so shout out to Meatball for that's why he works with me, and first day I ever met the guy, he walked in. I was wiring up a transformer, I think it was, and he walks in, introduced himself. I was like, all right, what's up, little Meatball? So everybody in the company now calls him Meatball. All right, I literally have him in my phone for that. But
he's just like shaped like a meatball or something.
no, it's just like that was the first thing that popped to me. Like he was like thin,
gosh.
like he was skinny, like don't even know why it came to me, But everybody calls him Meatball now. He's in my phone as Meatball. But luckily for him, he edits all of our podcasts and does all that stuff for us. But same thing. It's tough to have people do content or pictures or videos or even this podcast, for example, like to go out of their way to make you, successful in
right.
whatever way you want to put that.
Definitely takes a team, man. I mean,
yeah, for sure. And you have to be surrounded by good people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because there's a lot of people out in this world. I don't know too much about the fishing world, but like even the waterfowl world, that they'll stab you in the back in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure it gets more and more with the money that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
They won't think twice about it. You know what I mean? And it's sad because you're all doing it for like the love of the sport, but when it comes down to it, I guess the only reasonable thing I can think of is they got to make a living somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's you say like the love of the sport, right? And that's why I'm fishing and doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And I've had some interesting experiences along the way as well, and I've decided that like, look, I'm doing, I have to be having fun.
Right.
Like first and foremost, it's all about having fun and it's enjoying what you're doing.
Yep.
And that's the primary reason why I continue to fish the Tackle Warehouse, the Pro Circuit, the Invitationals. Like, that's why I'm doing it. I'm actually not doing it to try to make money.
Right.
And that will probably be the weirdest thing that anybody's ever heard, because most guys, I feel like, are doing it to try to make a career.
Right.
But like, I already have had a good career. I feel like I could go back to a full-time position probably, relatively easily. So I have a career I can go to. This is like I want to be able to have a good, enjoyable life and share things with people as well. And hopefully, like down the line, be able to teach people some more about fishing and hopefully have some people see what I'm doing and have them try to follow in the footsteps as well. Right. So, I mean, it's like, for me, it's all about having fun.
So what's your process or your thought process of guiding them or chartering, I guess it would be on the water? Because, a lot of people come up to me and a lot of, even rumors are spread that I'm out there guiding, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, which is not true at all. I've turned down opportunities to guide for people or do whatever, but for me, I don't want to make it into a job. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't want to make it to where, obviously I'm having fun with it every day. I want to still be able to pull the trigger, or, like we went out that hunting this past weekend and I didn't pull the trigger one time.
Right.
I'm sorry, I pulled the trigger one time on a pigeon, not even on a goose. I pulled the trigger on a pigeon. But, I'm not trying to make it into a job where, I'm out there scouting and have to do that for a living and doing this, that, and the other. What's your thought process on that? If you're just having fun with it all, you're really going to be turning it into a job if you do charter for people for smallmouth and largemouth.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to teach people though, like, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I've worked corporate jobs for a long time, and I mean, it's fine, but it's not really my passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where because fishing is, if I did charter and I did guiding, I feel like it would be fun, right? Because I'm just teaching people how to do.
Are you fishing?
Would
you be fishing though in that stance? Or are you like kind of watching those guys and kind of teaching those guys? Because that's a thing too, where it's not comparable, because the waterfowl industry, it's more of a federal thing. There's been guys where the feds will be undercover and come out into fields, and they'll be shooting blanks all morning, but your crew is shooting, and they end up shooting over their personal limit.
Yeah.
And then they'll get busted. So, like, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with all this other stuff that, you know, technically you're supposed to tag every single bird. Like, not every bird, but, like, say me and you come out hunting, you know, just me and you. I got to know where, I got to know what birds that I shoot. My dang mic. I don't know what's going on with this thing. I got to know what birds I'm shooting, and I got to know what birds you're shooting, and then that's going to be your pile, and that's going to be my pile.
Yeah.
We have to separate that, and, you know, obviously it's different from that, like from fishing and to an extent, though, because, like, you catch 5 walleye or 6 walleye or whatever it is, time of year, where you're at, you got to be done.
It's still the way. I mean, honestly, if 3 people go out, and tell me in your experience, right? 3 people go out on the Detroit River, 6-person limit per person, 18 collectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in my experience, people generally are just doing 18 for the boat because there's 3 guys in the boat. But I agree with you that technically I think you're not supposed to do that. I think technically you're supposed to be like...
hang up your rod.
Like if I caught 8, it'd be like I got to throw my 2 back.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly.
So I am not going to execute myself, I guess you want to say, with this. So I'm going to say I've never done that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's the same thing though with, you know, walleye. Bass fishing is a little bit different because, like, you know, you're throwing them back, whatever it may be. Some guys might want to keep them for whatever reason. That's a different story. But I guess the moral of the story is, like, you know, with the guiding aspect of it, you know, is it a job or is it a hobby? You know, and that's what I think that you got to kind of think about.
Yeah, it makes it tough for sure. But I still think that if I could just take people out and would I be fishing? I think that's up to the client, right? Because, and I've talked to some guides before. Some guides, you'll have clients that want you to fish because they might be more novice and they're trying to learn from you. So it's like, hey, show me the ropes, you know?
Right.
And when you start catching them, then they get excited and they're seeing what you're doing and they kind of get the rhythm a little bit better, the technique, right? But then you've got, you know, probably some people that
don't even know what they're doing out there.
Yeah, that, and
like
then there's
me
people,
when you take
and there's people that are good that probably could guide themselves, but they're just going out there because they don't have a boat or whatever.
I was gonna say that's the biggest thing, though. I mean, like, you got guys that go out and buy this stuff. I mean, maybe it is the 1 or 2 times a year that they go, but most of the time is they don't have the money or, you know, to buy the equipment or the equipment to go do it. I mean, it's all kind of hand in hand. You know, you got to have the money to grab it and then go. You know, it's all same.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, the best guide service you can go on is sign up as a co-angler in the Michigan BFL because you get to actually fish a tournament. And it's like $150 entry fee or something, and
per tournament.
Yeah, and you know, it's normally a nice gesture to give your boaters some gas money. So
100%.
Let's say you add in $60-$80, whatever, if they ran a long way.
Right.
And so now you're to like 230. I mean, I don't know of any guy that probably charges less than that, but now you're fishing with a guy that's literally
a pro.
He's a boater, so he's trying to do good, right? Like he's fishing whatever he thinks is going to catch the most fish, and you're off the back of his boat, and so you're fishing the backside. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think you can get a better one. In fact, I've toyed around with fishing on the co-angler side just for fun. But I just think people would be like, why is Troy Stokes fishing co-angler on the BFL? And it would just be like, well, because I just kind of want to just go out there and have a good time. And I think I could actually do great off the back of the boat, to be honest with you.
Is it for the love or for the love of the sport, or is it just for the money that you're chasing? You know what I mean?
Man,
like
that would be for me. It's just the fun.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
I didn't have to practice. I didn't have to really put any effort in.
Meet new people constantly. I mean,
yeah, and I mean
that's a big thing.
I can fish off the boater side too, but part of me, like especially with this tournament coming up, like I don't want to fish out there and show everybody all my spots.
Right.
you know?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like with we just talked about like the live videos and pictures and everything.
Yeah, right.
That's
I mean,
a lot.
It makes a difference. Like, there's some stuff that I did really good on, and when I made the pro circuit, some spots in Erie and closer that now there's a boat on every single time I go out. Every single time, 100% of the time, there's always a boat there. And I think that a lot of what this is, though, is it's like things just cycle. People forget about old spots, and I coming in, not having fished the east side that much, I found a lot of stuff that guys probably already knew about at one point, but they just kind of stopped fishing it.
Right.
And it got really, really good.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it on the map again, and guys are now like, "Oh yeah, you're fishing over there like I did that 10 years ago." And it's like, "Yep."
And that's even like talking to my grandpa that's been walleye fishing the river for 40 plus years probably, whatever, and it's like there's no walleye over there. He talks about so highly of like this spot over here or that spot over there. There's walleye there. You just got to trust the process. And it's the same thing. Like, there might not be birds in this area right now, but when this weather hits right, like at this temperature, if this water hits at this temperature, they're there, you know, and you do not want to miss that opportunity to do it.
So you got to let me know when that's going to happen, because I need to come out and see what it's
all
about.
The spots or what?
No, on the waterfowl, man.
Oh, dude, I'd love to have you out.
I need to experience it and see what it's about. I mean, I've had so many people tell me over the years, like since I moved here, like, "What are you doing? You're not duck hunting?"
Yeah, come out whenever you want, because obviously we're more field than anything. But come on out whenever you want.
Oh yeah, just to see what it's all about, you know.
Just to see what it's all about. You're gonna spend a lot of money, and you're probably gonna regret it, but you're gonna love it at the same time.
So it's another money pit.
yeah, basically.
Yeah. Oh man.
Basically. But no, do you have any like tips or, small tricks, which is kind of tough with fishing because every body of water is different, like we talked about. But any tips for new anglers that are coming up in the circuit, that are trying to make it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main thing is that you've got to just fish. You got to fish your comfort zone and your strengths.
Right.
It's not to say that you shouldn't try some different things in practice, but once you're actually in the tournament, you're probably going to do better if you didn't figure anything else out.
Right.
Just go back to your strengths, because consistency is the key with qualifying up into these upper levels, right? Like, you cannot have a bomb. And you look at my tournaments, I've had some bombs since I came to the pro level, and that was primarily because I was chasing a pattern or chasing history, because that's what it's supposed to be doing there, and I just kind of panicked and tried to make something happen. And I can tell you, like, as I've matured in that level of fishing, you know, you just got to fish the way that you fish. And especially, like I said, this year, forward facing sonar, everyone's fishing out there. They're doing it. I got guys I travel with that are doing it. They're sending me pictures of like 6, 7, 8 pounders. And, I end up doing, in a lot of cases, I placed higher than them. Right. And I wasn't using that technology, and I was just kind of doing what people do, throwing spinner baits and doing things like that.
Going back to the basics.
Yeah, exactly. And just following the pattern that has been around forever. And, if you look at the forward-facing tournaments, there's people finding stuff that just never existed before.
Right.
And it's out there in Erie. I mean, I know it's happening out in Erie.
Oh, for sure.
You could go out there in the middle of Erie, and you could just drive around with your trolling motor down, and you could like
find
pan around,
something,
and you could find schools of smallmouth just randomly out there in the middle of nowhere, not on a rock pile, not on anything like that. And you would probably do very well if you did that. And I'm sure you'll find that next year when we hit Elizabeth Park, because I'm sure there's going to be guys that go that way, and they're going to do that.
100%.
They're already doing it on St. Clair. I mean, almost a majority of the tournaments there, probably half the money placers are just live scoping or using forward-facing sonar to see them and throw right at them. Right. So, I mean, it's already a thing. But that's the thing. Just don't get too worried about the technology or what everybody else is doing. And don't do the doc talk, and just do your own thing. That's all you got to do. Do your own thing.
What's the doc talk?
Oh yeah, so the dock talk.
I got a feeling, but I got to know.
I try to not get involved with that because the dock talk is like, we'll get 2 to 3 days to practice for the tournament.
So is this like bullshit avenue, basically?
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey man, how'd you do out there today?"
Right.
And everybody's telling you like what they kind of did if they're your buddies and things. And
right.
There's some people, you might have a close group of people that you are telling a lot of information to, but for the most part, like doc talks, like the rest of the guys, that
I gotcha,
they're kind of just telling you some stuff and telling you it will steer you wrong. Like you gotta find your own stuff.
Yeah,
like you might have somebody that's the northern end of the lake, just go flip a jig all day, you'll catch 20 pounds. You'll go up to that northern end of the lake, flip a jig all day and catch like
1 pound,
2 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they didn't catch 20 pounds up north, because they probably did. But at these fisheries, it's such a big body of water. I mean, like, you got to find your own stuff, and you got to just fish your own pattern.
So from growing up in Michigan and, fishing a lot in Erie, what made you choose bass over walleye?
That's
or what makes you still go over bass?
I really like to eat walleye, but
right.
there's just not the same type of like consistent competitive walleye tournaments out here. Like my dad right now is actually fishing the National Walleye Tour Championship, and I think championships in Utah. But so there are competitive walleye tournaments.
You know how he wins that? Just put lead sinkers right in the big. No, don't do that.
Oh yeah, man.
But so I mean. That walleye tournament, though, I mean, a lot of guys, they'd make a lot of money off that, no?
Yeah. There's not as many tournaments, and they don't seem to be. I mean, there was a couple tournaments in Michigan. There's actually a Michigan walleye tournament, but
yeah.
I mean, at least I'm not aware of like weeknight walleye tournaments or anything, and that's kind of how I grew up, right? So I think that's what put me in that direction more than anything, was just that's kind of how I did it.
I got
And to be honest with you, these walleye guys come out here.
Oh, they don't mess around.
You know where they're catching those fish? Because I don't know where they're catching those fish. They come out on the Detroit River. They're catching like 6 to 8 pounders. They got a limit of 6 to 8 pounders. I've been fishing out there every day. I'm not even kidding you, man. It blows my mind. I will fish out there every day jigging, and I'll catch like a couple 6 to 8 pounders a year.
That's the thing, though. Like they're not jigging.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's, I know where they're catching the fish at, and I know where they're even. Sometimes, once in a while, jigging up those 10-pounders.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they're doing other stuff to where they're catching those fish, because those big fish, they've been around the block a time or two.
Yeah.
They're not going after those jigs. In the river, I'll say 80%, 90% of the time, you're catching males.
Right.
Them females are sitting low, they're laying low, and they're smart, and you got to think about why the walleye population is so good in Erie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by all the females getting caught. You know what I mean? I mean, you'll catch those females and once in a while, but they'll be 2-3 pounders, those young females.
Yeah.
But what's your thought process on? I got my own here, but what's your thought process on throwing back females of walleye?
I usually throw back the bigger ones for sure. I mean, but I don't catch a lot of them either. I prefer to eat the like 17 to 18 inches anyway. Like really, like the 15 to like 18, 19 inches are the ones I'm trying to eat, and most of those that I catch are males. But
there are some that sneak in there, because there's some males that you think.
I definitely fillet up some females every year.
Right.
But if I catch a big one and it's obvious, like I'll try to give it back in there.
So my thought process on that, which this might even change your mind, because I heard it a long time ago. You got the young females in there, right? And I could be way off on this. This is just the thought process I have on this. Those big females, how fertile actually are they? Because just in like being a human, the older you get, the less fertile you are. those 10, 12, 15-pound walleye out there, how many of those eggs are actually being hatched and spawning out? I feel like it's those 3-4 pound females that are actually doing most of the work.
Yeah.
And those are the fish. Those 10 pounders that everybody's complaining about. How much more life do they have? How much? I mean, they're huge fish. I mean, you're catching 30 inchers out in the middle of summertime.
Right.
Like, what is that? How far is that going? I guess you want to say.
That's a good question. Like, I know in Texas, just from a bass perspective, they've had extremely good success with guys bringing in, they call it the lunker share program, and any fish that's like bigger than, again, it's 10 or 12 pounds now. Like, they got to be big.
Right.
And they bring them in and they do genetic swabs and things on that. And then when they're doing the fish hatcheries, they basically breed them like the same genetics. So the fish get really big in Texas. Like, if you look at some of these guys, O.H. Ivy is a lake that some guys put on the map a couple years ago. Like, you look at that, like, they're catching 50 and 60 pound limits of largemouth. It's insane. And so I wonder if, like,
I guess that's.
It makes sense what you're saying, but at the same time, I think that's the thought is like, well, this fish got giant, so I want those eggs to hatch because
I think
that's
most
got
of the
good
time,
genetics.
people think of a 10, 12 pound walleye and they think of more meat. Because, I mean, that's what you're fishing for most of the time is the meat, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why they're keeping most of those walleyes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in reality, how many years have gone by and people catch and keep whatever they get,
Yeah.
and the population just keeps on growing?
And the thing is like some of those smaller ones have that like 12-pound genetic in them. So it's really hard to say like as a 3-pounder versus 12-pounder. Like, to your point, I mean, a lot of those, like, you harvest a 3-pounder, it might have been gonna be a 12-pounder.
Right.
You really don't know.
Right.
I mean,
but that's what I'm saying though. Like those 12 pounders, how much of those eggs are actually like good eggs?
yeah,
You
I don't
what
know.
I mean?
That's a great question.
Like I said, I could be way off.
Something
on
to
my
talk.
thought process.
Ask the DNR. I don't know. They might know.
For sure. And I'd love to have DNR on for, walleye, bass, for turkey, deer. I mean, everything. I'd love to have a conversation with all that. And I know, like, waterfowl, you got to have the right, springtime and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But the fishing aspect of it all, that's a lot. Because, like, you're talking about the genes in Texas and that lake, like, that's the genes. That's not the fish, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's a whole different aspect of that. Is the eggs that female's carrying, are those good eggs, or is it just a process that she goes through every single year, and those eggs are infertile, like they're just there?
I don't know.
I mean, it kind of makes you think, though. You know what I
it's
mean?
an interesting question. It really is.
Yeah. So I don't know.
If you catch those big ones, though, you gotta zipper them, man. Like,
I
didn't know the zipper until you guys were like,
any walleye,
you gotta zipper them.
Yeah. And they taste so much better.
Oh yeah,
so much better. That's why we give a lot of our farmers like walleye and stuff because they're busy and don't get to go out or they don't fish, but they love to eat walleye.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, if you find a bone or two, I didn't clean that fish. My dad cleaned it because I'd be zippering every single one of them things.
Yeah.
Zippering just changes the whole game on any fish in reality. I mean, look at pike even. Pike are huge into that. You know?
That's true, yeah.
Have you ever, target? I know you caught that one muskie, I want to say, that was, dead on the bottom of the
yeah,
river.
that one. That was weird.
That was crazy.
I thought I had a sturgeon finally.
Yeah.
I've never actually caught a sturgeon. It's still kind of annoying me because, I caught another big muskie this year on the St. Clair
Did
River.
you?
And it was alive, though, right? And,
right.
I was, man, this has got to be a sturgeon. And it's a big muskie. I've caught big muskie in St. Clair. I think the biggest one I caught was out of St. Clair on another drag and a bottom bait.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. I keep catching them on the bottom.
I got a couple spots because we hooked into I think 5 or 6 sturgeons that one day. I don't know if I told you about that.
Oh no!
So my sister's boyfriend hooked into a sturgeon, fought it for 2 hours on an extra light rod on an 8-pound test.
Oh my gosh!
I think it was 6 right around 6 foot, 6 foot, I'd say. He gets it to the boat, and all you see is my jig, like the jigs that I make, sticking out of the sturgeon's mouth. I gotta be careful how I say it. His dad goes to grab the fish. The fish flops, which I know in Canada you're not allowed to take them out of the water. He goes and grabs it. The fish flops, and all you see is the jig head go poop, flies out. They never even land the fish.
Oh wow!
But in that day alone, we hook into 5 or 6 of them, and we seen 2 get boated that day.
Jeez.
And huge, like straighten out the hook's huge. It was nuts, absolutely insane.
That's wild.
But
I know there's a lot of them in there, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, back in the day, there used to be a tag, I want to say, for them.
Really?
You used to be able to catch 1 a year or whatever it was, and be able to keep them. Nowadays, I mean, they're dinosaurs. You know, absolute dinosaurs. You know the one that they caught? You might have seen it. DNR was laying right next to it. And it was hurt. You know where that was at?
I did see that. Where was it?
That was on the backside of where we met.
Oh.
Where the new rock wall's at.
Oh, man.
That was right there.
That's awesome.
Isn't that insane, though? Like, that behemoth of a fish.
Just hanging out.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely just crazy, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, there's so many fish in there, too. It's just...
You just never know what you're going to catch. You really don't. You know what I mean? Like every time you go out there walleye fishing, you know, I caught that one giant smallmouth. Yeah, I don't know what these are doing, but I got that one giant smallmouth. We were walleye fishing. We were handlining out in the river. And we caught, I don't know what it was, but I mean, it was huge. You know, you just never know what you're going to be reeling up.
Yeah, my dad caught a steelhead out of the river one time off one of my smallmouth spots.
Yeah, I believe it.
I mean, it tasted great.
I bet it did. I bet it did.
I don't even know where it came from.
Well, I mean, I wish we had more. It's kind of weird because the Huron River dumps in, obviously. Excuse me. Huron River has a lot of steelhead, and I think they're rainbows in the river, in like the inland rivers, and then once they get out into the lake, they transfer over to steelhead. So I want to say that's right. But you know, they have a lot of steelhead or rainbows or whatever in the rivers, and they dump out. St. Clair, I know a lot of guys are catching steelhead, and I think cohos, I think it was, and even like Lake Michigan, the northern lakes, or like up north.
Yeah,
and stuff.
St. Clair River's got a lot of different species.
Why haven't they like really came this way? I don't know if it's the depth. You know, it's kind of tough to say. You know,
water coming out of Huron's a lot colder.
But like, so why wouldn't they hang out in that area though? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like things where I'd like to know, because I know Sandusky puts transmitters in their fish, in their walleye, which I'm trying to find out, which I'm hoping to talk to my buddy about.
Yeah. Because
they let it go the year later. So if you look back on the years for walleye purposes, and I don't know if they do it with bass, maybe I'm giving out too much information.
No, they did one.
But like, if you can look back, you know, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and you could start to slowly see. You could put those maps on top of each other per se.
Yeah. And
you can slowly see like where they're stationed at or where they're like staged at.
Yeah.
It might give you a better opportunity.
Yeah. Did they? Is that walleye migration available anywhere?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, because I have one. They did a transmitter at one of our bass tournaments several years ago. No, they were there, and they were putting them in our fish when we were releasing them.
Okay.
And they were doing a release fish study to see where the fish go after you catch them. And so a lot of the fish that we caught were smallmouth. They were exclusively tagging smallmouth with the transmitters, and we were releasing them back into the Sandusky Bay. I mean, a lot of the fish ended up going back to Lake Erie.
Right.
But it was pretty interesting to see where they went.
What's going on?
They didn't go to Erie as quick as people would say or think they probably would, right? Because Sandusky's
it's big bay,
dirtier, and it's warmer, and you would think they'd want to get out of there. But I mean, they hung out there for quite a while.
Well, I'll have to try to get that information and I'll let you know about that for sure then.
Yeah, because I have one. It's like an interactive map over, I don't know, 3 or 4 months that they did. So they probably have the same thing for walleye.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was actually on the Outdoor Channel is where I seen that. And I was like, that would be interesting to see. Even though they're doing it out in that Sandusky area.
Yeah.
Them walleye are still moving up river, or at least some of them have. Or up towards the northern part, and to be able to see exactly where those fish are going, I mean, that's got to be it'll give you a lot of insights to all that kind of stuff, So we'll see. That didn't look good.
Just got a text message.
What's
It was good news. Oh, it was surprising. So that walleye tournament that my dad's in, he's in 3rd place right now.
Really?
He's only 2 pounds out of the lead.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, he's fishing that as a co-angler, though, but he likes doing that better than the bass tournaments.
Well, we just talked about that.
For one, it's walleye, so we fished bass so long, he's kind of like, hey, it's different, I'm learning things.
Right.
And for 2, instead of like it being boat or co-angler where you both are kind of just fishing your own tournament,
right?
In those tournaments, you're actually combined weight.
Together.
Yeah, so I actually don't know what first place is going to be for that, but it's got to be something pretty big because that's the National Walleye Tour.
Nationals, that's pretty big.
And the thing about it is, though, like he'll bring his own rod because when you're a co-angler, like a lot of times they troll and stuff. Well, he'll bring his own rod,
right?
And I think he may have been putting that Kyle Howard jig down there a few times this year because he picked up a couple of key fish, big ones, just jigging.
Really?
Yeah, while his guy is doing whatever they're doing.
I got to get back on the train with that. Last 2 years I've been slacking.
I know, man. I'm pretty sure I was like, hey, I need like 50 jigs. I don't know if I ever got them.
I don't think you did. Did you pay for that?
I don't think so. But that
didn't even feel a little bit
that
better.
also means that I didn't go enough, which is also
true,
questionable because
true.
I actually only walleye fished for like 1 year or 1 week this year.
Really?
Yeah, just because all the bass tournaments are going on now that time of year when I'm traveling down south and stuff.
What screwed me over this year was the tank where the pouring tank, I guess you want to say, whatever. The arm that like stops it got like jammed up. So even though it's closed, it will still pour. So I don't know if something like you get some dirty lead or whatever it may be. Most of it floats to the top. Maybe something got stuck down there where it was letting lead out. Yeah. And, I mean, I was getting, an inch of lead that was pouring out that I would have to scoop up and put back into the tub on every like batch that I was doing. Like on every, pour of like in the jigs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was getting bad.
Jeez.
So we had to redo that, and then with things being shortened out and taking forever to get to you, it just really slowed me down. So I just stopped completely. But I really need to start like, January, February and getting.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah.
The problem is everybody
seems like a good business for you, probably. I mean,
I was making a lot of money for it, but the problem is like everybody wants different things, like 1 ounce. Our favorites are the 5/8.
Yeah, that's what I throw.
But everybody just wants so many different things, and you're talking about thousands of jigs that may or may not get bought up. You know what I mean?
Right. They want different colors.
Right.
I got Chelsea, who's got it down to the shade of orange. If you don't give her that shade of orange, she's not going to be happy.
You'll have to let me know.
I'm just saying, man. She's convinced that if it's not that shade of orange, that she's not going to catch them.
You'll have to let me know what shade, because they might not even make it anymore. We'll use that as the excuse. But
she was like, that one's one shade darker than the other one.
I probably just dipped it another time, so it made it a little bit darker or something stupid. Yeah. But is there any like plugs that you want to like companies, I guess, you want to kind of shout out with this, or
Yeah, I mean, definitely Lineage Logistics. They're based out of Novi, and nobody really knows what they do. But
so what do they do?
They're the world's largest cold storage warehousing company.
Okay.
And what that means is that probably at least 75% of everything that you buy at the grocery store that's refrigerated or frozen was coming from one of their facilities.
Really?
Yeah, so they're actually... Yeah, they play like a super important role in food supply chain, and so they've helped me out tremendously. They think it's pretty cool that they never thought they would actually be catching the food.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's kind of a
on
cool
the side
thing
of a
for
bass
them.
boat traveling all over the country.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I mean, you know, they've helped me out so much, man. Like, I can't say anything more about that, but like, I've got some other companies. Yamaha is a tremendous sponsor of mine. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they're one of the most reliable.
I might have to get a hold of you with
if not the
motors.
most, because I've never had a problem with Yamaha. Like, a lot of guys talk about some of the other ones that are coming out, but I've ran engines my entire career, never had a single problem. So I'm like, I'm not changing.
Yeah, I might have to get a hold of you because I'm looking for a 40 for the back of that duck boat.
Yeah,
because that 25 just ain't cutting it for me, so I might have to get a hold of you with that one then.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned I run a Phoenix boat now. That really is all because of Mount Call Marine, and they're based out of Stanton, Michigan. Those guys, honestly, in the electronics rigging game, they've got a guy. His name's Garrett Reams. If you want to make sure that your boat's got like the best setup possible,
go through that.
You got to go over there. I mean, Garrett is the #1 rigger in the state of Michigan as far as I'm concerned, and I mean, he's got my boat rigged up. I got to show you the new way that it's rigged because it's unreal.
I do.
I mean,
I got to check it out.
It's really good, and you know, those guys have a ton of boats always in stock. I mean, they're
what
one
really
of the easiest people to deal with.
Is the heated seats? How do you have heated seats on a boat like that? It's
insane. The heated seats, man. They don't.
It's insane.
Hey, they'll hook you up over there. That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know I needed heated seats.
Yeah.
They knew I needed heated seats.
Holy crap!
You know, but I've got a lot of them, man. But in Eco Pro Tungsten is another one that I want to point out, just because you talk about companies that are just personable. And Lee Rogers is actually in the process. Hopefully he's done it now. He's going to be the owner of that company, and he's been a fisherman like his whole life, right? So as far as like talking about looking at your followers and things, like, he's one of those guys that you just have a personal relationship with.
It's the best ones to go through.
And he understands. Like, he's a fisherman, you know? So it's just really good. And then, you know, a tip and a trick for the Detroit River. I'm going to let this one out of the bag. I mean, if you look at the MLF articles, I already let it out of the bag. But I throw the poor boy's bait, Erie Darter, pretty much exclusively on the Detroit River. So, I mean, if you're trying to catch some big smallmouth, it's not that hard. Just go out there, throw a drop shot with a poor boy bait, Erie Darter.
You're good to go.
You're going to catch them. I mean, that's what I was throwing, I think, when I was with you that day, too.
Probably, dude. We went out there the one time and did that, and that was the first time I ever drop shotted anything. I think I used all your stuff out there, so we might have been using that.
Oh,
and then the time we were punching the weed beds.
Oh, yeah. Don't talk about that too much.
Yeah, no. We'll flag it. No. But it was just some of the things. It's like, dude, what is this guy even talking about right now? Like, I have no idea what he's like, what even level he's on right now. But like,
dude, that was fun.
Because
who was it? Is your buddy that moved down to Nashville that was fishing with us that
Was
day?
it Bailey with us?
Bailey was with us.
Okay, that makes he was with us.
Dude, that was so fun.
We were catching. You were catching.
And
fish.
you remember that spot where I caught a bunch? I pulled up there in a tournament. I'm not kidding you not, man. You could ask this guy. His name Jim Rowan. I ran all the way up to St. Clair in this tournament, and I didn't catch anything hardly. And I came all the way back, and I went to that spot where me and you and Bailey were at, and I freaking threw in there. In like 3 consecutive casts, I caught like a 3.5, 3.5, and a 4.
In the trees?
Yeah, this guy couldn't believe it.
Okay, now I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The tree. Okay.
Right there.
Holy smokes.
And unfortunately, that spot's kind of ruined now because they dropped all that stuff down there. But,
you'd be very surprised because all summer we were fishing there, and there is some tanks in there still.
Yeah.
You just got to, same thing. You got to know how to fish it.
Well, you know where we like to drink beer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught 2 back-to-back 4s one time right there on that sand.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We were throwing, as crazy as it sounds, paddle frogs, spiders, and mice on the top, and it was just like back to back to back to back to back. It was just it was nonstop.
Yeah,
and that was in the middle of summertime. So yeah,
they get in there.
Just a little FYI for you. But no, anybody else you want to drop though?
I've got a lot of them, but I'll like I said, everybody that's on my jersey, if you go on my social media, man, like I've got
drop your social media.
I've got everything.
I know you already did it again, but
yeah, Troy Stokes Fishing on my Instagram. Look through there. Basically I've got I don't know what you call it, where I've got Great Lakes Outdoors set up, and then I've got like Daiwa, Yamaha,
like
Marine.
bio kind of thing.
Yeah, but I've got little stories for each of them.
Okay,
highlights.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
I
highlights.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So all the companies that do me good, they're all part of my highlights. So if you scroll through there, take a look at that. Lowrance is another one. I mean, I talked about the electronics, like they're the best. So
top notch.
they're just the best. I mean, for
Everybody knows that.
overall electronics, I mean, that's what you should get.
Right.
But I'm gonna also do a bunch more videos for that. Part of what you were talking about was social
right.
presence. Like I know how to use this stuff so well, and I want to try to continue to push and get more presence out there and teach people how to use them, because that part of the problem. I mean, people buy and they spend all this money, and then
they don't
know why they're using it or why they spent the money, and then it's like, well, I could help,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Even like at work today, like there was a guy that's brand new in the company, and it's like, don't go out and buy a bunch of random stuff that obviously a whole different thing, but kind of clicks back into it. Don't go out and buy a bunch of brand new tools or whatever it is, and because like odds are you'll never use those tools. Just buy your basic stuff and do some research and go from there. You don't got to buy something that somebody in Arizona did good on, because it might not do good here.
Yeah.
I feel like a big thing is like knowing the fish that you're fishing for. Like the swim baits, I feel like it's a huge thing. Just example wise, like, they might work here pretty good, but certain times of year they might not. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, and there's so much to learn. I mean, I'm still learning. I don't know everything. There's so many different things that you can do. Guys are throwing glide baits.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to try throwing a glide bait on the St. Clair River,
good luck.
You might be surprised. No, you might be surprised.
Really?
Yeah. Throw a 8-inch glide bait on the St. Clair River. You might just have the best day that you've ever had.
Well,
I don't do it, but I know guys that do it, and they've caught some giants.
Well, I'm sure they probably caught some giant muskie off of that too.
Well, I'm sure, yeah.
But no, for us, as always, which you're not familiar with the waterfall side of things, but My Girl, we got their banner hanging up in here.
Yeah.
Love those guys. They're supposed to be coming up from some of their guys are coming up this year to hunt with us. They got some shells that are double stack loads, which meaning is, say the best way I could put it is like you have a bunch of baseballs in a 5-gallon bucket. Well, you could probably put some golf balls in the gaps of those baseballs. So like it's just more shells. They're using up all the space. Love those guys over there. They helped us out. Same thing with like the sponsors that we run through. It's like just that down to earth family, kind of stuff. So big shout out to Myra. Big shout out to GK Calls, Michigan-based company. We started running with those guys. Great guys over there. Love their calls, and literally anybody on their staff, you get a hold of them, and they're right back with you with helping out where they can. I just can't say enough about those guys. And then Gator Decoys, they're coming out with a bunch of new stuff coming soon, which I really can't talk about on the podcast. But they have a bunch of poles that extend out in the water. So, you got your Mojo sticks out in the water, and which is like the ducks that spin the wings on it. A lot of the companies, they have like a bunch of pieces that you got to piece together for length, and you start losing them, and stuff starts getting rusted up, and it's just not a good thing out there.
Yeah.
Their poles are a one-piece pole. Well, it's a two-piece pole, but they slide in and out, and you tighten them up, and it's just kind of like the microphones. You can kind of lower them and raise them as you please, and great company, great guys down in Ohio down there. They came up and hunted with us one time. Hopefully more this year, but can't say enough about all of those guys. For Troy, I appreciate you coming out. You will probably be on the podcast more for fishing stuff and
let's do it.
Getting some guys out there, like getting guys on here, and this isn't the only time that people will be hearing from you.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk to about in the fishing industry.
We just scratched the surface.
Plenty of good guys in this area too to
Right.
bring on and
Right.
continue the conversation. But I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming. Like we talked about, like you might be running some podcasts on the fishing aspect of it all and getting guys in here and, getting the Great Lakes page more into the fishing aspect, I guess you want to say, or more involved with the fishing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't thank you enough. And anything else from you?
I'm looking at your logo.
Yeah.
It's got a big bass on it. So
does.
I'm just going to reiterate, Great Lakes Outdoors, hunting, fishing, waterfowl, that's what it's all about.
Love that every day, that Luke Bryan song.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're going to keep doing this and continue to look forward, man. Hopefully the first of many.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks again.
Until next time.